Please, let's take God seriously so that He can take us seriously. Let me tell you this, listen. It is not prayer that moves God. You know, so many of us we are so engrossed in that belief that is prayer that actually moves God to do certain things in people's lives. I have discovered, I've been working with this God since 1993, and I've discovered that God is more moved by prayer. God is not what? God is not what everybody. He's moved by personality. He's moved by what, everybody? How you are before God. How you are before God is what determines how prayer will move. The Bible says the prayer of the wicked is what? An abomination. So what God considers first is personality before hearing prayer. So if your personality is not approvable to God, if your personality is appalling to God, by the virtue of your attitude towards God and the things of God, it can hamper and hinder your prayers. Joshua, while he was leading Israel in fighting a major battle, because the army that came after Israel was actually an allied army. The Bible tells us that they were too numerous to count. They came after Israel, fought Israel in a valley. And God was giving Israel an edge over that army. God gave Israel an edge in the course of the battle. At the beginning, the army was defeating Israel, but in the long run, the army began to be subjugated by Israel. Israel began to defeat the army, but Israel needed the sun as a means of illumination to continue fighting that battle so that eventually they can get the victory. And the Bible tells us that while the sun was going down, possibly between maybe 4 o'clock in the evening and 6 o'clock in the evening, Joshua, being a strategic warlord, you know what he decided to do? He left the battlefield while the battle was still raging. He left the battlefield and stretched forth his hands in 2 different directions, to the moon and to the sun. And Joshua, with his hands soiled and stained with the blood of his enemies, stained with the blood of his enemies, he lifted his hands and said, "O you moon, stand on the mountain of Aijalon. O you sun, stand on the city of Gibeon." And the Bible went further to tell us that never in the history of man has God ever listened to a man. Never in the history of man has God ever listened to a man. Never. You go and try it. Tell the moon and the sun to stand still, whether God will obey you. I actually left my wife and my kids to come to church ahead of me. She never knew the reason why I delayed my coming. The reason why I delayed my coming was simply because I wanted to speak in tongues and reprogram the weather. Say, no, rain must not fall today. Because when the rain started this morning, I was still praying there. And I said, man, this rain mustn't fall this morning. Because this will be an excuse for people not to come to church. Lord God Almighty, take away this excuse. Configure. I said, no, you angel that God assigns to release rain, hold the rain until we are through with service. You go and try it, whether God will hear you. Go and try it, whether God will hear you. You think it's because I can pray and fast or because I'm anointed, that's why God can listen to a man like me? No. It's simply because when those who have known me for years, Victor is here now, I don't joke with God. God is more important to me than my wife, than my parents, than anybody. I don't joke with this God. The love I have for this God is limitless. As a result of the love, the affection, the regard, the esteem, and the honor I give to God, you know what God said? He said, whosoever honors me will I what? Whosoever honors me. God honored the voice of Joshua. How come? Because Joshua had a record of honor before God. He was a man that was always honoring God. Please, I want to advise you, listen to this advice. Never joke with God and the things of God. So that when you call on God, before you even finish the statement, God has responded. I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying.